Hello and welcome everybody to would this be the 7th episode of Hell in a Handbasket?
Lucky number 7. Yep.
Hey, there you go. Seventh episode of Hell in a Handbasket. So I'm Bradley for real. This is my friend and colleague.
None your business.
Yeah, that's right. And basically, so today we were going to be discussing some of course, like always, some of the hottest news that there is out there. And one of the things is that's been all over the place, especially for those of us who follow the Ukraine war, has been the Oreshnik missile strike. So I kind of want to start off with that. And for me, this whole thing, it's taken up a significant portion of my time because I was trying to figure out why in the hell is everybody obsessed with the Oreshnik missile? Like, why is this such a big deal? We already have ballistic missiles that move at, hypersonic speeds. We have, it's already nearly impossible to shoot down a lot of these missile systems, a lot of these weapons. Like the Russians have a Kinjal, which the Ukrainians haven't been able to shoot down either, right? Well, they've said they have, but they've never demonstrated it. And then on top of that, there already exist rockets with MIRV heads, with multiple independent reentry vehicle heads. And so it took me down this rabbit hole. And so what I think the big deal about this weapon system, the things to keep in mind, a couple of things to keep in mind is number one, shortly after, like, Putin made a statement where he discussed the Oreshnik, and he called it a strategic weapon, a non-nuclear strategic missile. And I was looking up some independent missile experts, people like Scott Ritter and Theodore Postal. These guys, right? The kinds of people that have worked with rockets and rocket technology throughout their careers. And what do they say? They say that this is definitely something new that we haven't seen before, number one. Number two, it's an intermediate range missile. So it's not an intercontinental ballistic missile the way that we think of it normally. And if you remember, the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty was one of the treaties that, the United States basically shredded unilaterally and took a dump on. And now, and the thing about the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, right, is that the medium range rockets these not the rockets that the United States would in theory be bombing, the Soviet Union and now Russia, and Russia bombing whoever it is, and vice versa, right? These aren't rockets designed for that. These are rockets designed for the European, I guess not front. We're not fighting yet. It's not World War III yet. Maybe it is, but this basically puts Europe at risk, right? Not the United States. This is not a missile system that's directed towards us. And so what it does is it allows the Russians to have a escalation path, to have a strategic weapon system that is not a nuclear or a tactical nuclear weapon. So you can get tactical nuke results without going nuclear. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason why people are freaking out about it.
Well, yes, there's that. Could you pronounce the name for me again? I cannot remember how to say it. And, obviously I don't speak Russian.
Yeah, it's Oreshnik.
And that's Russian. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's Russian for either hazel or hazelnut.
Yeah, so I didn't know that. I don't know if it's the same thing, but so like hazel is a bush. I don't know if hazelnut is also a bush. I don't know because I don't know if this is the same plant. Okay, so it probably is. And it's a bush, and basically a hazel bush is called an Oreshnik. That's the name of a hazel bush.
Okay. So it is a hazelnut then. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cute. That such a destructive weapon would have such a docile type of name. But yeah, to your point about nuclear qualities, I was listening to one of these weapons people who understands these things way better than me. But what he made a good point, because he said, given the speed that this thing goes at, because these are hypersonic missiles, right?
Yeah.
Given the speed that these things go at, you also have to factor that into it as well. So it's just not the warhead hitting, it's the warhead hitting at a hypersonic speed.
Yeah.
So that's why like these things can tunnel really far down into the ground and be like type like bunker buster type of things. So I think that woke a lot of people up because they didn't really know that Russia necessarily had that type of capability in a conventional warhead, right? So yeah, I think that it definitely sends a message to the West, particularly Europe. But I would also argue this is something that the U.S. they need to be worried about too, because these can easily be launched from submarines, right? And Russians made that point, right? They basically said, the ocean's not going to save you with these things. That was actually said. So, I think that looking back now about that treaty that Trump backed out of, when was it, around 2016, 2017 time frame?
I want to say, let's look it up. INF treaty.
I'm guessing they're regretting that now, because I remember at the time when they backed out of the treaty, I remember somebody, I don't think it was Putin, it might have been Lavrov, but somebody high up in the Russian chain of command said at the time something
2019.
29. Okay. Somebody in the Russian command at the time said something along the lines of, this decision will have very unintended consequences. And I think we're seeing those consequences now, honestly.
You mean with this strike? This
Well,
strike?
the development of this weapon, right? So had that treaty still been in place, this weapon wouldn't exist probably.
Yeah, of course, not probably, definitely. It's not that the Soviets didn't have a lot of interesting ideas about rockets. It's just that the Russians were actually following that treaty, and it's funny because I hear this all the time from people. They say, well, the Russians, you can't trust them. Well, first of all, that's what everybody thinks about the opposing side. How am I supposed to trust them? How are the Ukrainians supposed to trust Russians? How are the Russians supposed to trust the Ukrainians? How am I supposed to trust my neighbor after they left a note on my car? Like there's whatever, So, sorry. Anyway,
well,
so with this trust issue the trust issue is much overblown. So you have to be able to say that you go with it, you bite the bullet, you're an adult, and you shake hands and you make some kind of agreement. Because if you never talk because you don't think that any agreement can be made, and the Russians do say this, they say that the West is non-agreement capable, right? If you can't talk, then you can't make, the only other solution is violence. And we're sort of running out of road on how much we can do that and how much we can continue. Look at this. This is some more Ryashnik cope. Yeah, I was trying to see if I could find the actual video of you can kind of see what it looks like. Could it be on YouTube somewhere? Come on, show me the Ryashnik strike, please. Come on. No, nothing. Oh, here we go. Something at least. Look at the fucking speed of these things. Look at that shit. And okay, and the thing is, the scary part, this guy, Millennium 7+ star. The thing about this is it really is, let me see, he has another, yeah, he does. Look at this. This looks like an awesome freaking weapon. This looks like a doomsday freaking, some primitive people back in the fucking, I don't want to say primitive, who knows, maybe Neanderthals were not primitive, but saw that back in the day. They would have thought that this is like, the hammer of Thor, something crazy like this.
And that's my point about the speed too, right? Because you've got the force of it hitting at that speed, it just makes it more destructive. And
yeah.
Not
only that, but here's there. So the Russians said, they pointed this out, and they even showed like a 3D render, like a little 3D movie of how the idea is for that rocket to work. And yeah, you have these warheads that aren't necessarily, you don't have to put anything in them. They can be nuclear capable, but just the kinetic energy of itself, this just the kinetic energy, and you can see how fast those things were moving. That kinetic force is already hugely destructive.
Well, the speed, 3 kilometers per second.
Yeah.
Like, think about that for a sec. That's just wild.
Yeah, they showed like the kind of like the 3D mock-ups that I saw that they were showing. That there's probably no way I'm ever going to find it now. They showed like, okay, the rocket basically MIRVs, right? It takes, and then it sort of like MIRVs again, because you have 6 like warheads kind of per like canister, but then the canisters are actually, there are multiples of them in the warhead too. And so I guess when it's up in space, it makes a bunch of calculations and it decides independently where different warheads are going to be landing. And then after that, the warheads MIRV and they like spin really, really fast and just go down. And the thing is that like that was one rocket. Like that destruction that we were watching, right? That is one freaking rocket. That's not like intense bombing of like multiple rockets. That's the crazy thing. And look how like glowing those are. So we don't even know. Like I don't think that. I think that this is a demonstration was meant to be like a ramp, a possible ramp to say that we have escalation. We have like rungs on the escalation ladder to climb further if we have to for the Russians. And of course, right away the Ukrainians hit them again.
Yeah, so then they didn't though, and that's the problem, right? Like they launched these, and then we called their bluff because the very next day we hit them with storm shadows, and they did nothing. So to me, and I was mentioning this on the open mic the other day, and I basically, well, now I look foolish because I said at the time, I said, if we respond again with storm shadows, Russia is going to respond with these, Hellfire missiles that they have. And they're going to take out some bunch of poor Romanian kids at some base somewhere. Now, that hasn't happened. So, and I don't think it will, because if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. So I think that any strikes that the Russians make, they're going to limit them to inside the borders of Ukraine. Because they just don't want to escalate outside with NATO, which is, to be honest with you, I was kind of surprised. I thought the Russians were, did what they said they'd do, and now they're not. So
I don't look at it like that at all. I think of it as this is creeping escalation, right? So you have an ability for the Russians to escalate in multiple ways, and we've been almost like daring them to use a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, we keep daring them, but when they say that this is a red line and then we cross it and then they do nothing, all that's going to do is make us escalate even further.
Yeah, well, I think that this is our plan. I don't know who I heard saying this. It might have been the Duran boys, but they were saying something along the lines of, this could be a ploy by the Biden administration to basically just gum up the works for Trump coming in afterwards.
Oh,
now
completely.
I don't know how.
Absolutely.
So you agree with that? Okay.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no question. As soon as I heard about the Storm Shadow attack, the first one, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Oh, there's Biden trying to muck everything up for Trump and put him in a really bad spot that he can't back out of the war before he comes in. That's absolutely what they're doing, no doubt.
See, right? But how does that square with our conspiracy theory, at least my conspiracy theory, that we're trying to wind down the war regardless of what it is? We know that we can't like we were saying earlier, like what happens when you can't get your results on the ground? Well, you have to do something else. So shoot, you have to do something else. You got to get your results at the negotiating table. Where else are you going to get them?
Well, keep in mind though, this is all political, right? This is Team Biden wanting to, give President Trump a steaming pile of dog shit that he has to deal with when he comes in as president. That's all it is. So this is all politics. And
But
you
if they
saw
know the
that.
Russians won't escalate, right? The Russians want to end the war. The Europeans, to a growing degree, want to see an end to this war too. Maybe
Yeah,
not
but
all of them. The
Americans don't.
Americans, yeah, well, the Americans think that they're getting their weakening Russia at no cost to America. They're still
Right.
on that.
So there's your answer, right? Like Biden, if Harris won, the outcome would have been the same. And I've said this all along. The outcome is going to be the same. You're not going to see new funding from the US. You're going to see money trickle, or you're going to see arms trickle out like you have the last several months. The only difference is it's going to be Europe that's paying for them. And we're going to ask Europe to, foot the bill.
Yeah.
And we're also going to ask Europe to, hey, if you got a few troops that want to go die, go send them there too. Like, we don't care about Europe. And well, I'm going to put me in because, we're basically American. We don't give a shit about Europe. Never have, never will.
We really
And
don't.
no, we don't.
There are vassals. That's it.
Yeah. And we don't care about Europe. Like, so Europe, you're going to have to pay for this. Europe, you're going to have to die for this. That was the outcome, whether or not Trump or Harris won. The only difference now is Biden and company are trying to, lay a turd for Trump, so he'll have to deal with it. Because let's say, for example, that Russia did escalate and they did blow up that Romanian base, and then Trump has to potentially deal with some sort of NATO conflict. Like, what a way to start a presidency. So yes, I agree with you that it makes no sense for the Russians to retaliate. But then on the other hand, it makes all the sense in the world for Russians to retaliate because at some point you got to punch a bully in the nose, and they haven't done that. So
You see, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this is the scenario that they want to avoid. What was it? That was it a John F. Kennedy quote where he said, "The last thing we want to do is we want to put a nuclear power in a situation where it faces either
yeah,
war or humiliation." Okay,
yeah,
so this is the thing. The Russians are keenly and always have been and continue to be very, very aware of this fact that
sure.
people are going to need, it's going to be individuals who are politicians who are going to need to be able to make those steps back. And you're going to need to be able to not burn every single bridge in order for you to be able to still come out there and make demands. Like, for example, the Russians are still demanding a lifting of the sanctions, right? So you can't I don't know, you can't just expect to get what you can't get on the battlefield through the negotiating table, sure, but also it's better to negotiate when you still have aces up your sleeve. So I don't know. I think that maybe even if Kamala Harris won, we would have still seen something like this because it's still just another escalation, even if
Well, it's all grift, right? Like, yeah, I mean, for America, it's relatively costless. Like $100 billion is a lot of money, but when you got the printing machine, what does it matter, right? And so, if there's no American troops dying and all it costs is, several million a year, whatever it could be, like that really is a bargain. So I can see why they wouldn't want to put it down because really it's just funding the American arms industry anyway, right?
yeah, exactly. The thing
But
about it's a boon. It's been a game changer for our defense industry for us to realize that we didn't have the industrial capacity to sustain a war against
yeah,
just the Russians,
yeah. So it's becoming clearer to me now. I think with Harris, no doubt, like I'll say the same thing. There would have been no new funding. It never would have gotten through Congress ever. Not after the last fiasco. So either Trump or Harris, the result, like I said, is going to be the same. No new funding. Now, the only difference, though, is with Trump, I thought that Trump was a lot more anti-Ukraine than he appears to be now. In other words, Trump is full of shit, which we should have known, right?
Well, I mean, that's what I would have assumed anyway.
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't think Trump Trump always said he was going to end the war in Ukraine and all that. I think now we can see that that was all just talk, and he's just going to continue to toe the deep state line, which is keep us out of it, but keep us in it to the point where we're funding it in terms of weapons and our influence over the Ukrainian or the Europeans to die for us, right? So they'll continue that game. It'll be the same play.
Yeah. So
now the only
difference
though now is the Europeans won't play ball. That's the only difference. So 2 years ago they could play that game. Now the Europeans are all like, screw this, buddy, we're out. So you're going to see the whole European alliance collapse within the next year out of necessity because they're all broke now. So yeah, that's what's going to happen. Ukraine will just collapse.
But think about what all this means. Think about what it means. Like, it might be a good place to bring up the Romanian elections, because what it means is it shows that the increasing divide between European elites, which are their bread is buttered with the Americans by and large, are up against an existential, almost like wave, it seems, of populism. And this keeps getting talked about. So during the Romanian elections, they kept talking about cybersecurity, and they kept bringing it up. And that was like all that you heard about that election. And for me, like that to me told me that we're focusing on online, like maintaining an online strict information space around the Romanian election, so that you don't have, Romanians that are maybe a little bit waffly on NATO or something like this.
Well, before we get into that, let's give a bit of context, because most people are like, what the hell are they talking about at this point?
Right.
They don't know anything about it, Ukrainian politics. But let me just share something real quick. Maybe I shut it down. Oh, well. So as we were just discussing, there's an election going on right now as we speak in Romania. And I believe it was on Sunday, the first round of votes went through. Mm-hmm. And an independent candidate, guy, his name is Călin Georgescu. And I hope I got that pronunciation right. Probably didn't. Călin Georgescu. Georgescu. He is some sort of academic. Now, this guy, a bit of background about him. Like, the media is calling him all sorts of, he's hard right, he's, fascist, blah, blah, blah. This guy is a university professor. He's got a PhD in soil science, and he's a big proponent of sustainable agriculture. In other words, he's basically like you are Romanian hippie. Right? Now, he's like a career bureaucrat, as best I could tell when I was looking him up and searching around. Like, he was the executive director of the UN's Global Sustainable Index Institute. So that's kind of like one of these think tanks that talk about sustainable farming and stuff. He's also a member of a bunch of other European discussion clubs. He's that kind of guy. He's like a European bureaucrat who floats around to various think tanks and whatever. But his real background and passion is in farming, right? So he was running in in Romania as an independent candidate. And he was largely unheard of before the election. But what he did very successfully was he managed to leverage social media well, particularly TikTok. So he managed to create a lot of videos on TikTok that gained a lot of traction. He gained a lot of followers, and they ran a really smooth campaign on their social media platforms. As shouldn't be, well, I guess it was a bit of a surprise because he really wasn't being picked up on the polls or anything. Because, again, this is mainstream media bias. Why would you even bother with an independent candidate when the two major parties in Romania, basically it's the Romanian uniparty. All of our governments in the West, we're all uniparties now, right? So Republican, Democrat, same party, right?
I don't know.
Liberal,
It's the same
conservative.
in Germany. I don't think it's the
Yes, of
same
course.
in.
No, they're all the established parties. They're all in the tank for the deep state. That's what I mean. Like, forget
Okay.
about little nuances and social shit and all this crap. They're all the same party. So they ignore independent candidates like this guy. So anyway, like I said, he ran a really successful social media campaign, and to the shock of everybody on Sunday, he ending up in first place with 23% of the vote. The next highest candidate was the opposition candidate. She had 19% of the vote. And then the prime minister's party, the governing party, they also had 19% of the vote. So very close election amongst the three parties. Now, of course, given that this independent candidate won, now if you look at what he actually won for, he was campaigning on anti-NATO, don't want to support NATO, don't want to give any more money to Ukraine, don't want American bases in Romania. Like,
It's another Orban slash Fico. Another Orban slash Fico. This is what I mean by it.
Or just somebody with common sense. Like I like anytime
but they call these guys populists. They call these guys.
Yeah, but anytime I hear populist, replace populist with someone with common sense. Same thing, right? That's all a populist is somebody who supports the ideas of the majority of the population, right? So
Yeah.
if you believe that the majority of the population has common sense, then yeah, you should vote for the populist candidates. So he came in first in the first round. They now have a second round in 2 weeks' time. So, of course, Europe is freaking out right now about this guy. And you're seeing, I just want to share this.
Because he got it all online, because he shared it, because he did it online. Let me put you up there. Yeah. It probably makes it so that he's, this is exactly why they can't stop talking about election
sure.
Online security and cybersecurity. This is why, because this is where he made his
right.
This is how he got there.
Is that too small for you?
No. This, I mean, I think it's fine.
So these were the articles that came out the next day, and I just want to highlight some of the language. Ultra nationalists.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like you read through this article, and it's like an independent who has praised Vladimir Putin as a man who loves his country.
What the hell? That's the most benign praise.
Like
you could say that about King Jong-un, and that's not even.
What's wrong about loving your country, right? Yeah. But I saw this article because I think, well, number one, it's The Guardian, which is, classic trash. But I just love highlighting some of the language that's in these articles, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then the next thing, so obviously he runs this campaign on TikTok. So what do we expect to happen? We expect to happen.
Did I make that go away, or did you make it go away?
I made it go away. I'm going to share this one. Let me know when you see it. Yep.
It's up.
Yeah.
You should probably zoom in on this one a little bit.
Okay.
This is the one I was looking at too. I think this is exact. That's better. Yeah. Much better.
So, just look at some of the language. So you read this, and basically a couple days after the election, now the EU Parliament wants to call in Chinese-owned TikTok.
Of course.
What we're doing here?
Yes.
So now the European Parliament is calling for the far-right candidate to come in and testify on their actual campaign. So, you look at this stuff, and it's he's demanding answers. And, we call on the CEO to speak to this House to ensure his no infringement. So you're reading through this article, and the things that
oozes and seeps of this language of.
Well, just read this. We believe that TikTok was misused and was led to be misused by him as an army of fake accounts of review for his purpose. Said this guy. I'll get back to this in a second. So we believe this. Now let's scroll down. There is, however, no proof at this stage of involvement. So
it's right there. They even admit it. Jesus.
Yeah, but this is your classic Western media from Politico. Nobody gets this far down in the article. People read the headline, right? So
Yeah.
what you'll find about these articles is the truth is usually in here somewhere, but you just
A lot of
gotta
it anyway.
dig through the bullshit. So, like, you leave what you read about this guy. We believe that this clown, executive director for this, the Association for Technology and Internet. You do a bit of searching around for this
A nobody.
association. Well, no, they're another European funded NGO whose sole purpose is to do this stuff. Is
Yeah, he's still a nobody
basically
though.
just yeah, but their entire purpose is to sow dissent. So what you're going to see in Romania for the next, there's no chance this guy wins. I don't think,
You think so?
because
You know what? I think so too. If I was gonna bet, I would bet that there's no way they let him win. That would be my bet.
oh well, it'll be the same thing that happened in Moldova with the EU vote. It'll be the same thing that happened in Georgia. It'll be full court press. Everybody for the next 2 weeks in Romania. All they're going to be fed is a steady diet about how this guy is the next Hitler,
Yeah.
and how that's it. So
And that's what
I
they
don't
mean
think they'll win.
about that is exactly that. Just going back to the original point about the Romanian election. This is what they mean by cybersecurity. I mean, like nobody come into our sovereign information space here where we're going to be completely brainwashing the entire population right now. It just remains to be seen. I don't even know how much of the quote unquote population you maybe like fool or sway to your side with your arguments. I think that it just creates an opportunity for the elections to have some shady nonsense. Who knows? Who
Well,
knows
and
what?
you read about this guy, right? And they're talking about all this nefarious TikTokery and all this stuff. This guy doesn't know the first thing about TikTok.
You
You
heard it
listen
here
to what
first. Nefarious TikTokering.
Well, you listen to this guy, and he ran a really successful campaign on TikTok, largely because he listened to his kids, right? And he basically just listened to what his kids had to say of, and obviously they had other people around, but there was nothing untoward about it other than the fact that he figured out that a lot of people have tuned out mainstream media, right? This result is no different than the Trump result or other results that we're seeing in Germany. I think all this is symbolic of is the fact that mainstream media is completely in the dumper, and particularly
Yeah.
young people. Young people have completely tuned out the morning Joes of the world because they don't understand what that means. To be honest with you, you know,
Why they
like
should care? Why it
well, they don't
matters?
even know what it is. Like if I was to say to my kids, "Go turn on NBC," they wouldn't have the
Yeah.
foggiest clue what you're talking about. They're like, "What? And what? How? What? There's an app? Is an app? You want me to download an app called NBC? What's?" They wouldn't get it, right?
Interesting.
So that's what this guy tapped into. He tapped into the fact that nobody's watching the mainstream media. So if the polls were wrong, obviously they're wrong because they don't have their finger on the pulse of what people are actually thinking.
So this is another political article. It's not the same political article that you just had up. This one's called Ultranationalist Candidate Scored Stunning First Round Win in Romania Election. And what do we get here? Georgescu, extremely religious and nationalistic, campaigned on reducing Romania's resilience on imports, supporting farmers, and increasing the domestic production of food and energy. Who the hell could be against that? That sounds like they probably need that shit. He also urged that the EU and NATO do not properly represent Romanian interests and claimed Russia's war in Ukraine, a Romanian neighbor, is manipulated by American military companies. That's another one that's so pretty benign. For you
So he's far right. That's why he's far right.
That to just say, some of this has to do with the military industrial complex of a different country that's making decisions that is impacting our continent. That is apparently devious. In 2022, he claimed that the U.S. anti-missile shield located in the southern Romania village of Deveselu is part of a confrontation policy and not a peaceful measure. Russian President Vladimir Putin has argued the same. Duh, yeah, it is. Everybody knows that, obviously.
Well,
you don't know that.
You don't put a missile system somewhere for peace, right? You
Well,
don't.
even the anti-missile shield.
Here's our peace system. We're
well,
calling it the peace system, right?
But, okay, so the Western audience will agree that it's an anti-missile system, though. They don't know what that means. Anti-missile system sounds benign. It sounds like you're protecting people from missiles with this anti-missile system.
Well, it's a shield.
It's a shield, right? It's not even an anti-ballistic missile system. It's a shield. And what they don't know is that number one.
Tell that to the Ukrainians who had Patriots fall on their heads the other day.
Yeah, well, it's not the first anti-air rocket that landed on Ukrainian heads, unfortunately. But anyway, what was I trying to say? But yeah, the missile system, number one, there's
the line again. He described Putin as a man who loves his country.
Exactly. That's like where I was going to go next. He said that he had no support from Russia, but felt close to its culture. That is also very benign. Who could be against, Dostoevsky? If you don't like Dostoevsky, that's only because you never read Dostoevsky. And if you read Dostoevsky and you don't like Dostoevsky, it's only because you didn't get it. I can't imagine another way. I'm sorry. I'm a Dostoevsky fan. Anyway, so what's up with these missile systems, right? What a Western audience doesn't know. Number one, if you have mutually assured destruction, right? Your anti-missile systems that are in Romania are there to stop Russian missiles that are going to be trying to go to the United States in case of a mutually assured destruction scenario. So this is a way for us to try to put our shield closer and closer to the Russians. It's easier to shoot down a missile when it's over there than when it's over here. You get more chances to shoot it down. So expanding these anti-ballistic missile systems deep into what used to be Soviet territory is basically expanding our like American, right, U.S. Western chances, let's say, during a World War III, unthinkable nuclear World War III Holocaust scenario. And then number two, a lot of these missile systems, especially thinking of the not the THAAD, but the Aegis. The Aegis ashore, they're dual missile systems. They're dual use systems. They can launch nukes as well as anti-air rockets. So, the Russians are doubly paranoid about that. And if you just think that, oh yeah, the Russians shouldn't care because, I don't know, I guess we're a benevolent hegemon and we're a defensive alliance, then you don't know how armies and generals think.
This political article says so much, though. Like it really tells you the thinking.
He managed to convince them with a messianic speech.
My point is, scroll up. My point is the fact that they're writing this and they're using these as points why he's a bad guy.
Yeah, like he can negotiate.
He admired Hungary because they know how to negotiate internationally. Why is that a bad thing for a country to be able to do? But it tells you so much about the thinking of the deep state. And you're not allowed, Romania, to think on your own. You're not allowed to negotiate on your own. You need to get your direction from the EU. And the EU needs to get their direction from the United States. That's the chain of command. So no, you're not allowed to negotiate on your own. You're not allowed to love your country.
Yeah.
Right? You can't have love for your country. You know why? Your country doesn't exist, Romania. You're no longer Romanian. You're European. You're all part of the EU now. You're not allowed to love your country. That's what this article, that is exactly what this article is saying. Right?
Yeah.
This is how they think. This is how they think. It's all right there.
To me, what this article is saying is that they're number one, this is Politico, so we already know who their audience is. So they take advantages of the fact that for granted you're just going to assume things like, for example, Putin is bad, and it doesn't matter. Like, you don't want to say anything nice about Putin, right? If you say Putin is bad and Putin has a point already, that's too much. You gotta say Putin is bad. invasion is unprovoked. He's a maniac, So that alone, this whole loves his country bit, I think that was more to do with that. And they threw in the loves the country thing because it's got a little bit of got that right wing flavor, like nationalist kind of. Yeah, he's a man who loves his country.
It's like, look at this, like. He managed to convince them by a combination of messianic speech delivered in an elegant way so as to capitalize on people's frustrations. In other words, he was a politician. Is that what you're telling us?
Analyst.
He was good at politics. And because he's good at politics, he was successful in
he ran a campaign, in other words.
Right. Yeah,
what you're saying is he ran a campaign, and this campaign had messianic speeches.
But you notice, like, even what they're saying, you can tell it in their speech. He managed to convince them. Like, somehow he managed, like, he had a bag of magic beans in his pocket. And he went up to Jack and he said, if I give you these magic beans and you give me some cash, you're going to grow a big stock. And that's all so he managed to convince them to take the magic beans. You know what I mean? Like, somehow through some sort of wizardry, he managed this. This is how they're writing this. It's insane to me. It's hilariously insane.
Like, he made a deal with the devil, and they even go out, they point out, he didn't have anything to do with Putin, of course, yes, but still. But okay, I like this too. So they already kind of said they kind of distanced him from Putin on accident because they have to, So they add Georgescu has drawn fierce criticism for his previous comments supporting Romania's 20th century fascist legionary movement, but rejected accusations that he is anti-Semitic. So just gotta give him a little bit more of that because like, think about how innocuous that. You don't know what that means. Fierce criticism for previous comments supporting some Romanian 20th century fascist legionary movement. That could mean a lot of things, and that doesn't mean that you're part of, like.
Right. Well, this is one of these things, like you said, they threw that in here so that they could label him anti-Semitic. Now, maybe he is. I don't know. I have no clue what this legionary movement is. I don't know what he said with respect to his comments about it because I don't have, a good knowledge of Romanian history. But at the end of the day, I don't need to have a good knowledge of Romanian history. The people in Romania do, and they voted for this guy. So that tells me everything that I need to know, right? This is just a bunch of let's throw everything into the article and see what sticks. This is your classic political article. But I think it's hilarious because it's so telling in how they think, right? And how they expect the vassals to behave.
Well, you're right that so much seeps through the cracks that they are indignant that somebody would make a nationalistic choice or whatever. But also, I think this is a good point to think about how different outlets are going to be pushing different angles, even if they're basically more or less pro-empire outlets, right? So here's CNN, and of course, what are they going to start talking about? He is a critic of NATO, praised Russia, of course.
He's hard right. I have no clue what hard right is. None.
Undermine is I think we've discussed this before. Like, what does that even mean anymore? Undermine its pro-Western stance. So see, what CNN is taking for granted is that whatever is good for the West is good objectively and good for you and good for the audience. So they're coming from that kind of angle. And from there, then they can feel like indignant with saying, like 99% of votes counted, independent, hard right, Călin Georgescu, who's 62, at 22.95% of votes. Center-right contender Elena Lasconzi, leader of the opposition state Romania Union, lay second with 19.2. But so you can kind of see Romania's sovereign parliamentary election looms. This is another article that's chock full of stuff. But yeah, they a lot of stuff seeps through the cracks when you actually read the article. You're so right. When you're not just reading just the headline, even in the first paragraph, we were able to get a lot, right? And this is coming from Reuters, so this is CNN reposting Reuters.
Right.
It makes even more sense.
When you actually listen, like if you check out some Romanian news and the ones that I could find in English, that the reasons people voted for the guy shouldn't be surprising to anybody.
Yeah.
The kids don't want to go and die in Ukraine. That's number one. There's a lot of opposition towards NATO, the Ukraine war, and Romania's involvement in it. That was a huge issue. Obviously, the inflation issue and the cost of living was also huge.
Romania was played as a outsized role, I would say, in this war too.
Yeah, they didn't want to support NATO militarily. You had the cost of living crisis, and you also have the Ukraine support because they were supporting a lot of Ukrainian. Like, there's an immigration problem there with all the refugees and stuff. Those are the three big issues. Nothing more to it. So the people in Romania, they are apparently against the war. They're against NATO, and they'd like to have cheaper groceries. If that's hard right, I don't know. I guess we're all hard right.
Well, they're going to find reasons for him to be hard right. Former member of the hard right opposition, Alliance for Uniting Romanians, praised Ion Antonescu, Romania's de facto World War II leader, who was sentenced to death for his part in Romania's Holocaust. So more, he's hard right fascist kind of stuff, right?
And of course, here we go. Right? I don't know enough
the
about
important
it.
part. Here's the important part. Here's the important stuff. I think, right, is Georgescu has called NATO ballistic missile defense shield in Romania a quote-unquote shame of diplomacy, and questioned whether the Western Defense Alliance would protect any of its members if they were attacked by Russia. Well, the second part is a good question, but also the first part, as we've already discussed, is obviously in the Russians have pointed this out too, right? This is an aggressive move. That is, think about how it undermines Romania's security. If Romania doesn't have any nuclear weapons and Romania doesn't have anti-ballistic missile systems, there's absolutely no reasons for the Russians to bomb Romania with, in the case of World War III. Same thing with Finland. There was no reason for the Soviets or the Russians to have gone after those countries that don't have nuclear weapons. But now you make yourself a target. You try to get nuclear weapons. You put American missiles on your soil. You put anti-ballistic missile shields. Okay, you know what? You want to call that an anti-ballistic missile shield? Well, the Russians are going to say that we are shielding our missiles from your anti-ballistic missile shield by sending Kinzhals to wreck your Patriots or whatever that you guys have. And
I want an anti-ballistic trebuchet. That's what I want. Can you get me one of those, dark web?
Anti-ballistic trebuchet, dude. That sounds
That's
like
what
it
I
would
need.
Require massive engineering effort.
That's okay. I'm just going to put it in my backyard and I'm going to launch it at my neighbors. But anyway, it's I mean.
You mean you're not going to launch it from your neighbors because you got to protect yourself from their rockets,
One of my neighbors is great. Like, I'm not going to touch him because he leaves me alone. Because he's like old and bitter like I am, and he's like a legit outlaw biker gang guy. So he's just like, you stay to your side, I stay to my side. We don't have to talk. We're good. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. The rest of my neighbors definitely get in the trebuchet. But anyway, sorry,
Mongol style, what did the Mongols do? They would take the bodies of diseased corpses and launch them into cities,
like cows and stuff.
Yeah, crazy. But anyway, so this is more bad stuff, right? Romania's best chance lay with quote Russian wisdom, but has refused to say explicitly whether he supports Russia. So, think about what that means. Just dissect that, decipher that particular, small snippet there. What he's saying is that although there is no reason to, and there is no statements from him, and there is no evidence that we can use, because trust me, if they had it, it would be all over everywhere. Instead, all over everywhere, they say, okay, fine, there's no links with him and the Russians, right? They'll just say that he refused to say explicitly whether he supports Russia. So leaving it open, he left it open. He didn't not leave it open. He didn't say shit though. That's the thing. It's like saying, well, my neighbor, what is it? Are you gay? Do your parents know you're gay? Okay, that's like a rhetorical trick, okay, fine, but obviously, I mean, for me, maybe if you're a CNN reader and you read that, maybe that does go over your head. You didn't just understand what you just read, the massive contradiction and what the massive brainwashing that they're laying here, right? It's like they didn't have to outright lie. he probably never had a reason to, and especially now, if he gets elected to the halls of power in Romania, would definitely not want to ruin his relationship with Russian diplomacy preemptively by just talking and pouring shit down on the Russians, right? For absolutely no reason. But what they're saying is he's not sufficiently pro-us. He's not sufficiently pro-NATO. He's not. He wants to get rid of that nuclear system, and that is the issue with him. That's all the problem with him.
The thing about the hegemon is you need to have 100% loyalty to the hegemon, or it's like, remember George, you're either with us or against us. Right?
Yeah.
He said it all there at the time, and he meant it. Right? Like everybody laughed at the time, but he was serious. He was like, "That's how the deep state thinks. You're either with us or you're against us." So this is no different. But the problem that they're finding now, and it's only going to increase, is nobody's listening to them anymore, right? In order to get people to buy into this stuff, you need to have a media that is, controlling the narrative and feeding you the narrative. They're still feeding us the narrative, but they don't control it anymore. And that's the problem, because people are getting all their news from X. They're getting it from TikTok. They're getting it from Telegram, wherever.
So the way you're going, it sounds like that's one of our 2 scoops of crazy, one of our 4 scoops of crazy. So
excellent segue. Good call. As you cue that up, I'll finish my thought. But basically, they're still trying to spew the narrative. They've lost control of the narrative. They no longer control what's real and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And that's their problem. So yes, it's actually a really good segue, because when Trump won the election, if you guys recall, Elon Musk came out with a very famous tweet. It's got like $100 million or 100 million plus tweets or likes
now
or
notorious
views or whatever. And all he said was something along the lines of, "You are the media now." And I think we talked about it on here before. And what Musk meant was, you guys are the media. The mainstream media is an outdated model. Everybody with a phone now, you guys are the journalists. You guys are the ones who are going to tell us what's real and what's not. And that's what everybody's gravitating to, because we all like that. And we see the benefits of it every time we go on X or TikTok or Telegram, right? So that's only going to continue. And all these fossils that are hanging out in mainstream media world, they're all going by the way of the dinosaur, right? Like, it was just announced last week that NBC is going to spin off MSNBC. Now, what they mean by that is we're getting rid of, and we're going to sell off NBC or MSNBC to, whatever sap is dumb enough to buy it from us. That's what they're saying, right? And you heard about CNN. They're laying off all sorts of people. MSNBC is laying off all sorts of people. So all of these mainstream media sites and television programs, the whole model doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work anymore. It doesn't work anymore.
But I think it hasn't worked for a while, or increasingly. Yeah. But I think now and more they're feeling it, and more it's becoming an existential crisis for them.
Yes. Well, I mean, this is an ongoing thing, right? Like, it started with the cable cutters. So, it's not just the mainstream media that's feeling it. It's all the various sports leagues are feeling it. Traditional television shows, traditional movies, all like traditional cable basically are getting decimated, because people started cutting the cord 20 years ago. And I honestly don't know anybody still with cable, to tell you the truth.
But to me, I think this is a lot to do about Trump. I think this is much to do about these guys, these morons elected Trump.
Accelerated. Well, I think that's accelerated it, because the only people who still have cable are your boomers, like people 60 plus. Yeah, it's people 60 plus who just haven't figured out social media for whatever reason. So your Rachel Maddows of the world and your Anderson Coopers, their market is your blue hairs, your blue hair Democrats. So they're still trying to pump the narrative to this increasingly small audience, Whereas the rest of the audience in the world, we've already moved on to other platforms, right? So,
Yeah.
but the problem for mainstream media, as well as the deep state, they're not evolving. Like, technology is always going to evolve faster than these dinosaurs. And that's what you're seeing now. The tech has just been evolving so quickly the last 20 years. Their apparatus hasn't evolved as fast. So the reason the Democrats lost the election and the reason this guy in Romania won the election is Trump was
For the
able
same reason.
to, yeah, like they were able to harness the power of social media better than their competitors. So I think, yes, you're right. I think it had accelerated under Trump, but I don't think it was because of Trump. I think that, like I said, this is just a result of cord cutting and all the old folks dying off as they get old, right? So the whole cable model is gone, man. It's finished. It was finished 20 years ago.
All right, let's hear this.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this one.
Oh
No
shit!
sound.
Why is there no volume? Hold up, let's figure this out. Oh, here we go. Now there's volume.
Audiences consume news, and we have some of the remarks you made during your acceptance speech. Let's listen.
I hate this damn debate about, like, oh, we don't need the media. Like, it is not true. Think about what makes this. I love this country. I'm a beneficiary of this country. Like some from Wisconsin who can come and start 2 companies, be up here, win an award, sit next to Mikey. I'm a beneficiary of it. But there's something about the country. There's something about it, right? There's something about freedom, capitalism, the animal spirits of democracy. But at the core of that is maybe transparency, maybe a free press, maybe the ability to do your job without worrying to go to jail, maybe the ability to sit in a war zone and tell people what's actually happening.
What's his definition of free press? That's what I want to know. Because is he going to say that MSNBC is free press? Come on.
I don't know what he's talking about, to be honest.
So they're not just looking at distortion. Matters. It matters profoundly. It's why it's not like we just love getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning doing this every single day. Like, we do it because we love it. We do it because it
You just said it's not because we love to do it.
Matters.
He said it's because we love it.
Everything we do is under fire. Elon Musk sits on Twitter.
Because you suck at what you do.
Saying
everything they do is under fire. Yeah.
Oh, rewind it. This is the statement here.
All right. Wait,
like, we are the media. You are the media.
Yep.
My message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media.
Sure we are. Like, he can't even get an applause from this group. Did you see that? He said that, and there's like 3 people at the press club clapping for it. They got big problems. Like, even the press club didn't know how to respond to this rah-rah speech that tells you everything.
Let me rewind it a little bit.
Nothing there.
Message to Elon Musk is bullshit. You're not the media. You having.
Oh yeah, you mad, bro? Why are you mad?
You having a blue check mark, a Twitter handle, and 300 words of cleverness doesn't make you a reporter any more than me looking at your head and seeing that you have a brain and telling you have an awesome set of tools makes me a damn neurosurgeon.
It makes me have a point that's worth making in 300 characters. Unlike you got all this extra characters and you said jack shit was not worth listening to.
Right? Like what we do, what journalists do, what you did in Mississippi.
Propagandists.
Here it does in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Propagandists.
Claim yourself to be a reporter? Like, that's nonsense. Like, being a reporter's hard. Really hard.
Yeah, it's hard. You know what's hard? Getting shot at in Palestine. I've got more respect for those reporters than your piece of shit ass. So yeah. I've learned more from those reporters than I ever will a suit like you sitting in your ivory tower in Washington. Keep going. I'm sick of looking at this guy. Let's get him over with.
You have to do the hard work. You have to get up every single day and say, I want to get to the closest approximation of the truth without any fear, without any favoritism.
How do you know they're not doing that, you dumb fuck? Go ahead.
Yeah. If you were doing that, then maybe people would not be leaving your outlet in droves. You
don't do that by having an opinion.
You do that by having an opinion.
You do it by doing the hard work.
Yeah, come on, slow clap, everyone.
Slow clap, everyone.
First of all, I've got to say, extraordinary content. It needed to be said.
Yeah.
It continues to need to be said. When all of the garbage is flying around on social media, lying about reporters, lying about the hard work they do, lying about
what are the lies?
Yeah, what hard work?
Tell me one.
What?
Like,
yeah, exactly.
This is the rhetoric that these guys do. It's like they talk.
Do they believe themselves when they say
well,
that?
they talk in general terms. They never give you a specific, and when you ask them for a specific, they never give you one. So and that's why nobody, probably Joe Scarborough's, maybe his wife or daughter or son or something watched this show. Maybe a distant relative. That's about it. Maybe about 7 people watch this show.
Well, Joe Scarborough's wife is part of the show, right? He's married to me.
Oh, is it? Oh, are they? Okay, well, good for them.
They got married a few years back.
Oh, so they were fucking on the side. Good for you, Joe. Good for you. I appreciate a sleaze bag when I see one. But no, my point is, what was my point? My point is nobody's buying this crap anymore, and that's why they're freaking out right now. That's why this guy at the press club was freaking out the way he was. That's why you're seeing all these media articles about the evils of X or the evils of TikTok or whatever it may be, and it's all rubbish. Like, we even saw that in the article that I put up, talking about how bad TikTok was, and then it was right there in the article. There is no evidence. This is all propaganda. That's all it is. And, people see through it now. And that's the thing. No kids, I promise you, no kids these days have a clue what any of this is. Like, it's so foreign to them that, if you were to talk about conventional television, wouldn't have a clue what you're talking about. Seriously.
Do you know what a television reporter is? Right away, you're going to run into problems. Like a television reporter. Yeah, it's like a person who reports the news, but, not really. Sits there on his ass in a well-lit studio.
Yeah, buddy, I'm telling you, nobody under 40 is buying into this crap. Nobody. Yeah, and I would argue that maybe even people my age, majority of people my age, like Gen Xers, we're not buying this. The only people that buy this crap are the boomers. That's it.
Because people that I know that are Gen Xers, they're, even if like the most traditional they go is like they'll be watching what Ben Shapiro's fucking outlet or something. Like that already, that is alternative media to a large extent, though. Like what is it? What is their outlet called? I just can't remember right now. But that's to a large extent. Oh, there you go. Yeah, to a large extent, that's not the same as a traditional media company, like for example, MSNBC. Maybe you could say they're a little bit like got that Fox News thing going on, where they know who their audience is, they know they're serving their audience up, But that's what MSNBC and CNN were about. Well, especially MSNBC, especially MSNBC. That's what they were about, like doing the same thing, but except for backwards. Well, here's the thing, like, this is your own voters that rejected Joe Biden. It's your own voters that rejected, what was it? This is now Trump's America or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the Americans that chose that. And you know what? So, and you can see that, and that decision is made not only in the polls, but that decision is made reflected in your viewing numbers, in your ratings, and the fact that you have to grovel before Trump.
Yeah. Well, I think the deep state, if this election taught them anything, I think it should have taught them that they have to have a really big rethink about how they communicate and influence society, right? The whole mainstream media model has to be scrapped, and they need to come up with a new strategy, because the one that they have isn't working. Now, unfortunately, I think their strategy right now anyway, is suppression. Yeah. The strategy is we need to suppress all of these platforms because we need to get back to, controlling the gate, right? We need to,
I'm the reporter. You're not the importer. Slow
right.
clap. Like, well,
right.
Fuck you, dude.
So I think that's their plan now, but I think that, within the next year or so, they're going to quickly realize that plan just won't work. Because like I said, the technology will always outpace the stupid bureaucrats.
No, there will be a way to shoehorn more and more. Think about how many people have to learn what McAfee is or what other antivirus programs that come pre-installed on your computer. You have that. You open up a browser tab here. Like, watch, I'm on today. So, I mean, not the best example, but look, you open up a browser tab. Let's say this is quote unquote the news. All right, whatever. 14 canned foods. Let's see. News. Top stories. What have past Republicans said about tariffs? Trump cabinet pick targeted with bomb threats.
Yeah, but Bradley, the thing about it is, kids these days aren't even getting here. Yeah. Right? They're not even getting here. They don't, like, kids these days, unless it's an app like TikTok or something, like, they barely surf websites.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm saying the whole thing needs a massive rethink. And unfortunately, I think the rethink is going to be limited to how do we suppress this as fast as possible. And that's what you're seeing in Europe now. Like, when the EU is calling on TikTok, that's what they mean. They want to intimidate TikTok. Now, meanwhile, TikTok didn't do anything.
X,
right?
too. They're doing the same thing with Twitter.
But like I said, people will always be smarter than bureaucrats. And the technology will always be smarter than bureaucrats. So we're always going to find a way around it because,
you're very optimistic. You're more optimistic than I am.
Well, no, it's just the nature of the world now, right? Like 50 years ago, you could absolutely suppress the narrative, right? Because
50 years ago, you could get Pravda in your local newspaper store. It was there. The Americans were so brainwashed that they didn't understand that the brainwashing is going both ways.
Right.
When you're reading New York Times, it's just as propaganda as Pravda.
But nowadays, I think that people have become a lot smarter.
We're privy to that.
Well, because we are so used to having all this information at our fingertips now. Like I said, 50 years ago, people didn't have any of this, right? So nowadays, people, I think, are a lot more inquisitive maybe than they used to be, and a lot more distrustful. And that's actually a good thing. Because, I think a lot of people, unless they see it with their eyes, they're not going to believe it.
Joe and Mika haven't done shit to earn your trust. Like, why would you trust them?
Right.
What are they like on the ground reporters that are there saying, no, you believe what I'm saying because I'm showing it to you. Look, right behind me, there's a hurricane.
And the problem now is people have been lied to too often and too seriously that they've given up on these talking heads because they know that they're all propagandists, right? Because you can't go on any of these programs like a CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or whatever. You listen to them and my goodness, it's
almost palpable.
Hamas is evil and Israel is altruistic. But then you go on X and Telegram and you see a bunch of kids being carted around in plastic bags. Again, you're going to go with what your eyes see, not what dickheads like Joe Scarborough tell you. And that this is the reality that they're facing right now.
This is the reaction that we're seeing right now.
Too many of us, too many phones who don't believe they're garbage anymore. So yeah, they got big problems.
I don't know. I think my point is that I think they have more. There's more tricks in their bag of tricks that they can still pull out. They can still do some shit where, you know what, that's the only news that you can get unless you're a huge tech head and you go out and you root your phone or you use, Linux or Windows XP or something, then you're going to be completely surrounded by the narrative in whatever way. They'll make an Epoch Times, they'll make you some alternative quote unquote outlets. That's what whole BreadTube thing is about, right? Where you have quote unquote alternative news, but that's
but even that we'll find a workaround for. We always do, right? Even when they banned RT and they banned Sputnik, and did you have any problems accessing it? No, I didn't, right? Because there's people figure out ways around it, right? So, and that's
where
my
there's
point.
A will, there's a way. Okay.
Where there's a will, there's a way. So, and also politically, try banning TikTok, see what happens. Try banning X, see what happens.
I think they want
right?
to, especially TikTok.
Well,
I think they want to so bad.
You try to ban TikTok or X, the public outcry would be massive, number one. Number two, it would also motivate a whole lot of people to that platform.
Yeah.
Just because, okay, you're trying to ban it? Okay, we'll see about that.
Yeah, I remember creating an account on Parler for that reason. I never even used it. I never would have used it, but I'm like, I'm not allowed to? Okay.
Yeah.
I got to see what it's about.
So yeah, they're never going to ban TikTok or X, because I think that there's going to be a lot of talk about it. But at the end of the day, I can't see any politician in the West having the political will to do such a thing. Because people, again, I go back to, we see through their lies now. And that's why all these governments are getting defeated. They're getting defeated because they're not popular, right? They're getting defeated because we see through their lies. They're getting defeated because we hate them, right? So, you look at Romania, you look at Germany, you look at France, you look at, the US, you look at Canada's coming up, you look at the UK, it seems to be every 2 months. Like, we hate these people. We hate them now. It's not dislike. It's not like we roll our eyes every time we see Justin Trudeau. We hate him now.
Yeah.
It's not that we would rather have a different president than Joe Biden. We'd have Donald Trump over him. This unknown from Romania coming out, he's something other than the other two pieces of trash who they know are trash. And the whole West is collapsing, guys. The whole West is collapsing because the people see through the lies.
Definitely the EU seems to be in
US and Canada are right behind them. Don't kid yourself. And Japan is right there. Australia will be right there. All of us. Anybody who's got their wagon attached to Uncle Sam and the greenback, we're done. It's just a matter of time.
All right. Let's finish off this first two scoops.
On a happy note, have a great week.
Yeah, right.
Up and down about not only their alternative set of facts, but alternative set of facts about what people like you do. And I love how you connected reporters in Mississippi in the 1960s.
Super serious face.
Reporters fighting for their life to get the story out in the Middle East today. Jim, it was very powerful.
Really good.
Very powerful. Even if even if we had to beep you.
What the heck, dude? Where are those reporters on MSNBC? Shut up. Don't even try to drag Gaza into it.
But again, the only people who are there that are like 80-year-olds like my mom, who are traumatized by having to hide under desks from nuclear weapons back in the 50s and 60s. That's the only people who are watching these fools anymore.
Okay, I think it's almost done.
More than we would if we ran a Dave Chappelle concert.
I like
still
it.
good.
Jim's mild manner.
He preached it though. The cadence. I mean, I might get him ordained.
Well, let me just say why this is so important right now, more than ever, is because critics of the press are feeling more empowered than ever to lie more than ever. I've had friends for years going, I'm so overwhelmed, Joe, by the news. I don't read the news. I go, where do you get your news then? Epic Times. I go,
oh God.
God.
From a website run by Chinese, by conspiracy theorists in a Chinese religious cult. That is where you get the no. Or if social media, people lying every day, every hour.
I don't believe for a second that anybody told this clown that they read the Epoch Times. I don't believe any of what he just said.
You know what? You're probably right. Who does he rub shoulders with. That would even we'll read that. I don't even know.
What you do matters. What the New York Times does matters. What the Wall Street Journal does matters. What Jonathan Lemire does matters. What the Financial Times does matters. What NBC News.
What Joe Rogan does matters.
It does not matter. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, NBC. It does not matter what you do. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how you analyze that BS. It's all, the proof is in the pudding. People can see the bullshit. The sleaze, it's palpable. It seethes through the screen. The stench of Morning Joe. It's something you can't escape as soon as you see them. Like just the whole set.
The most important platform for world events and current events right now. Not platform, but show is Joe Rogan. Easy. Rogan, and that's what they hate. They hate the fact that they've been replaced by a roided up MMA comedian. But that's what they've been replaced by. And you know what? He's better at it than they are. He's way better at it than they are.
Way better. He's miles above. Even if you don't want to agree with a lot of stuff that Joe Rogan has to say, he obviously is an inquisitive individual, and he is a very talented interviewer. Something that neither of these guys, traits that neither of these two losers play.
And that's what these guys don't understand. This is what I go back. The whole model has to go. The format doesn't work anymore. The studio layout doesn't work anymore. The talking heads don't work anymore. None of it works anymore. And if the deep state wants to continue to be a deep state, they need to change the model, because nobody's buying their crap anymore. And I think it's too late for them to change the model. Everybody is and it's actually a really good thing. It's the way we should be.
Yeah, this is the way the news should. Who are these two guys?
I don't mean the news. I mean citizens.
That's what I mean.
We should always have.
Why do I have to have a certain worship somebody's opinion in a certain way?
We should always have a healthy distrust of our government. And the U.S. was founded on a healthy distrust of the British government, right? Mm-hmm. Having a healthy distrust of your government and what they intend to do is actually, I think it's a good thing. And that was the role that the media used to play. And that's a very important role. Somewhere in the last 20 years or so, the media stopped doing that. And they started being a cheerleader for the government. So that's why they all have to go now. They're the enemy now. They're the deep state. So we need to get back to having a truly independent media that challenges the governments, that asks the hard questions, that shows the hard footage, so that people can see it for themselves and then make informed decisions. That's what the role of the media should be, not this circus.
Well, that's what they would have you think, is that that's what they're doing, right? Because
but
reporters like you, he doesn't want to.
But again, we all see that
humble little Joe Scarborough.
Yeah, but again, we all see that they're lying, though. Like, the only people I'll go back to that believe these two clowns is a bunch of boomers who are sitting at home, and they just don't understand how the world works anymore, right? That's who listens to this crap. That's it. The demographics show it. So, look
how mad they are. Look how bitter they are.
Of course, if I was pulling in
through him, like he's got mad. He's got disdain for Elon Musk, for Twitter.
Dude, if I was making millions of dollars to bang my co-host, and then to the point where I married her, and you're taking my my meal ticket away, I'd be pissed off too, right? Why wouldn't you? Of course you'd be, right? Those suits are not cheap, man, right? No. Her fake tits there, they're small, but I can tell they're fake. I just have a way to tell. Those are not cheap.
Nice. Look at this watch. Exactly.
Not cheap. The Morning Joe cup, the mug, that's not cheap.
I wonder.
I'd be pissed off if I was him too. Rachel Maddow took a $5 million pay cut, right? I'd be pissed off if I was her too.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, that's right. We didn't even talk about Rachel Maddow. We're coming up on an hour and a half.
I'd rather not. Like, I'd rather
Yeah, let's
forget that I
not.
even mentioned her, to be honest. In fact, after I get off this, I'm going to go throw up because I've got her image in my head. So, yeah, we probably should wrap up.
Let's finish this one up and then hold up.
It matters.
Unlike
and
you.
It doesn't mean there aren't things that we get wrong. And the reason I guess I was hopped up at that speech was I listened to so many reporters who feel like the industry's going to hell. Nobody trusts them. They're demoralized.
Turn this guy out. I can't do this anymore. Yeah.
No, that's it. That's it. That's it. It's done. But we kind of had to get that that reaction from Morning Joe, where he slow clap. Somebody finally said it. Oh, somebody other than you.
I mean, it just told us so much, because look at how badly they're all panicking right now. They are panicked because they don't know what to do. None of them know what to do, and they're all getting fired.
They're mad, bro. They're all mad, bro.
I don't think it's mad. I think it's true panic. I think it's panic and confusion. We don't know what to do next, and we're too stupid to figure it out. Right? That's what they're all thinking now. Because it's true. Like, none of these people, this Morning Joe guy, do you think he's some sort of bright academic? No, he's a Ken doll. Right? Yeah. It's like, okay, who do we get to look good
He's a reader
and
of
read? Yeah. Right? None of these, they're all airheads. Every single one of them. Anderson Cooper, all these people, they're all dumber than a bag of
royalty. They're all TV royalty.
Yeah. So, but, you know, their day is come and gone. And, you know, good riddance to you. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I haven't had cable in 20 years, so none of this is new to me. You know, like I've never watched that stuff in a long time. So,
yeah. Okay. So really quickly, we did promise the audience to give him 4 scoops of crazy. So in the last couple of minutes, the second scoop of crazy is going to be, let's see here. Check this out. So, guys, I don't know if people know who Hamish de Bretton Gordon is, but Hamish de Bretton Gordon is like a professional British cope artist, basically. Let's put it that way. Former NATO commander Colonel Hamish de Bretton Gordon has described the current situation as, quote, dangerous moment, but insists the West must, quote, hold its nerve against the Russian leader's nuclear rhetoric. Keep in mind, in order to avoid nuclear Armageddon, we must hold on to our nerve, right? The concerns follow a week of heightened tensions, including Russia's test launch of the powerful Oryashnik missile on Ukraine's eastern city of Dnipro. While the missile has stoked fears of escalation, Colonel de Bretton Gordon dismissed the possibility of nuclear conflict. He told The Sun, nuclear Armageddon is off the table. That's not going to happen. Really? Okay, so we know what a reporter's job would be? To say, how do you know that? Why should I believe you on that? What happens when I talk to look at people like Jeffrey Sachs, or people like Scott Ritter, right, to bring him up again. Well, they have a different opinion, and they obviously know better than you, but nope. They're just going to quote him.
Well, I do tend to agree. I don't think there's going to be any sort of nuclear conflict. I never have.
I really hope there isn't.
I don't think there will be. But I think that that's a whole lot of rhetoric, and I think that, people like Scott Ritter, overspin on it.
The fact that he's being so bellicose is because he knows he's in trouble. This is what Hamish de Bretton Gordon says about Putin. He said, pointing to the vulnerability of Russian and North Korean troops amassed in Kursk. So, like, throw in a couple of talking points there, too, plus North Korea as well. They are sitting ducks, he added. This guy has been wrong about everything in the war. Everything from the beginning to end. And here he's just going to say, Nanya agrees with him that there's not going to be any nuclear holocaust. I don't know. Think so. I think that we can, there is definitely places to make missteps.
I think the chance the chance of is far more likely that Russia flattens a base somewhere in Romania with conventional weapons. They don't need nukes. So, my biggest concern has always been, we launched Storm Shadows at Russia. Russia said that they'd retaliate, and then they retaliate and they attack a base in Romania or Poland or wherever, and then it's nut cutting time, and then you've got a hot war. Mm-hmm. However, looks like we called his bluff. They're going to continue hitting in Ukraine, and they're not going to go outside. So I think we're fine. She's got a good rep, though. Go back to that other picture. I'm telling you, man, you can she was flat chested. And then when she was about, I'm going to say 20 or so, she said, I need titties. So then she got herself a BC cup. They're not bad.
So, I mean,
Joe
at
did
least
well.
Probably a good career move, right? Probably it was helped you out being part of Morning Joe for how many years now? So,
well, and getting to fucking ride his knob every night. I mean, what a bonus that would be.
well, I mean, just talk about sleeping your way up. But I mean, say that, but at the same time, wasn't she Brzezinski?
I have no idea who this person is. This is the first time I've seen her.
Her dad isn't. Yeah, her dad was like a fucking what's his face, Brzezinski, containment guy.
Yeah, I don't know who she is. I know the name Morning Joe, and I've seen this clown on clips. Her, I couldn't. She's just some irreplaceable blonde, some whoever.
Two clowns.
Yeah, but
okay.
Again, it's symbolic of how the mainstream media has just become now. Is these two characters? They're all characters now.
Yeah, we didn't get into a lot of stuff like them sucking up to Donald Trump again. But I guess in order to make it into an hour and a half, we kind of sometimes don't make all the different stories that we want to make in. Is there anything else that we should address, though?
No, looking forward to a good week ahead. And
hell yeah. Hopefully I'll be seeing you guys on open mic, if not back at Hell in a Handbasket. So do all the YouTube things, like and subscribe and stuff, and peace.
And have a great week. Cheers.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Bye.